the girl who forgot how to love. Rain always sounded different after a heartbreak. To Elena, it no longer felt calming or poetic. It felt like a mirror, cold, relentless, reflecting everything she tried so hard to forget. She watched the raindrops slide down her window as she sat on the living room floor, wrapped in an oversized sweater. The room was dim, lit only by the lamps she hadn't bothered replacing when they began to flicker weeks ago. Music played softly from her phone, her attempt at avoiding silence, yet silence seeped in anyway. 3 months since Daniel left. 3 months since she heard the words that cracked something permanently inside her. I don't think I'm in love with you anymore. 10 years together, vanished in a single sentence. Her friends kept saying she would move on, that she would find someone better. But they didn't understand. Daniel wasn't someone she simply loved. He was someone she built a life around. He was her plans, her comfort, her anchor. Losing him felt like someone uprooted her from her own soul. Now she dragged herself through each day, pretending to function. Pretending she didn't still check her phone. Pretending she didn't still sleep on one side of the bed. Pretending she didn't replay memories, wondering what changed. Love had once been her safe place. Now it was a wound, and she promised herself she would never, ever love again. The chance encounter. The rain eased by late afternoon, leaving the city washed clean, shining against the neon lights. Elena forced herself outside, mostly because the silence in her apartment was suffocating. She walked to her favorite cafe, Lavender and Gold. A warm little place with soft yellow lights and the smell of vanilla drifting through the air. She went there often before the heartbreak. She hadn't stepped inside once since Daniel left, but today something inside her nudged her forward. Maybe exhaustion, maybe stubbornness, maybe a tiny spark of who she used to be. The bell above the door chimed softly as she entered. The cafe was nearly empty except for a few college students and a man sitting near the corner window, typing on a laptop. His posture was relaxed, a cup of coffee untouched beside him. She ordered her drink and sat far away from him. But the universe had other plans. The moment she opened her laptop, she froze. The keyboard flickered, then died completely. Her laptop battery had finally given up. Perfect, she muttered under her breath. From the corner of her eye, someone looked up. Everything okay? She turned to see the man from the window table watching her. He had warm brown eyes and messy hair like he ran his hands through it when thinking. He looked older than her by maybe 2 or 3 years, with that soft kind of gentle expression that made people feel safe without knowing why. I'm fine, she said quickly. Just a dead battery. He smiled, slow, genuine, not the kind people give out of politeness. If you need to borrow a charger, I have a universal one. Elena hesitated. No, it's okay. He didn't push. He simply nodded and returned to his laptop, but something about the moment lingered, like the universe had gently tapped her shoulder. A tiny flicker in her chest, one she quickly forced herself to ignore. When kindness hurts. Elena tried to read a book instead, but her mind drifted. Every time she looked up, the man was still there, typing, occasionally sipping his coffee, occasionally glancing at her with a quiet curiosity. Not flirtatious, not intrusive, just aware. It made something unfamiliar stir in her. When she finally got up to leave, her book slipped from her hands and fell onto the floor with a soft thud. He got up instantly, picking it up before she could reach it. You dropped this. Thanks, she said quietly. He handed it to her, then paused. Sorry if this is forward, he said, but you seem like you're having a tough day. I know I'm a stranger, but sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who doesn't know your life. She froze. Her chest tightened. Because he was right. Because she was tired. Because part of her wanted to collapse into someone's kindness, but she no longer trusted kindness. "I'm okay," she said, forcing a small smile. "Really?" He nodded slowly. "All right, but if you ever change your mind, I'm here most afternoons. Not that you need to talk to me. Just if you wanted to." There was no pressure in his voice, no expectation, just a soft offering. When she walked home, she hated herself for how warm her cheeks felt. The second meeting. 2 days passed. 2 days of replaying the cafe moment in her head. 2 days of convincing herself he was just being polite. 2 days of telling herself she shouldn't care. But on the third day, she found herself walking back to the cafe. She told herself it was just because she needed coffee, not because she hoped he would be there, not because she remembered his eyes, not because she remembered the way he spoke as if her feelings mattered. But when she opened the door and saw him at the same window table, laptop open, coffee steaming, her chest tightened in a way she couldn't deny. He looked up and smiled, not with surprise, not with interest, but with recognition. "You came back." She swallowed. "Yeah, I needed caffeine." He laughed softly, the sound warm enough to melt winter. "Good reason." She ordered a drink and sat at her usual table. A minute later, he glanced in her direction. "Mind if I sit with you?" Her heart jumped. It shouldn't. She didn't want it to. She wasn't ready. But instead of saying no, she whispered, "Sure." He sat across from her, close enough to feel his warmth, far enough to feel safe. "I'm Adrian," he said. "Elena." "Nice to meet you properly this time." She looked down at her cup, fingers trembling. He noticed. She saw the concern flicker across his face. "You don't have to talk about anything," he said gently. "We can just drink our coffee. Silence is allowed." Her heart softened the tiniest bit. That simple kindness was something she hadn't felt in months. The first real smile. They didn't talk much at first. Adrian typed on his laptop occasionally. Elena read her book. They exchanged small comments about the coffee, the rainy weather, the cafe music, but nothing heavy, nothing emotional, nothing dangerous. Yet somehow, Elena caught herself smiling, really smiling, the kind she almost forgot she was capable of. At one point, Adrian looked up from his laptop. "You smile like someone who forgot they're allowed to." Her breath caught. In any other context, she would have bristled. But his voice wasn't analyzing her. It wasn't judging. It was simply observing with kindness. "It's been a while," she admitted. "Well," he said softly, "I'm glad you found it again. Even if just for a second." She didn't know how to respond. No one had spoken to her like that in months. No one except Daniel, once upon a time. And that memory stabbed a little. Adrian noticed her silence and didn't push. He simply offered her a gentle smile, then returned to his screen. The moment stayed with her, a tiny warmth in her chest that didn't hurt, cracks in the walls. Elena didn't mean to return the next day, or the day after, but she did. And every time she walked into the cafe, she found Adrian already there. Same spot, same soft half-smile, as if her presence wasn't a surprise but something he quietly hoped for. He never asked why she came. He never pushed for details. He never crossed the invisible boundaries she wrapped around herself. But without realizing it, Elena began to let those boundaries loosen. A little. Just a little. Enough for him to step closer than anyone else had since her breakup. They spent their afternoons sharing tiny conversations, nothing intimate, nothing painful. Favorite books, favorite music, how he liked the quiet corners of the world, how she liked routines because they made life feel safe. Sometimes they just worked in silence. It felt peaceful, but peace was dangerous. Peace made her heart remember what warmth felt like. Peace made her wonder if she could trust someone again. Yet every time a spark flickered, Her fear smothered it. She still woke up some nights hearing Daniel's voice. She still felt the sting of abandonment. She still carried the ache of someone who once promised forever and left without hesitation. So when Adrian smiled too softly, her heart panicked. When he brushed a crumb off the table that landed near her hand, her pulse jumped. She built her walls higher. But Adrian never tried to climb them. He simply stayed on the other side, patient, steady, warm. And in that patience, her walls developed cracks. The coffee shop, Confession 1, cloudy afternoon, about 2 weeks after their first real conversation. They sat across from each other in the cafe. Adrian closed his laptop and stretched. "You always have that look," he said. Elena blinked. "What look?" "The look of someone who's carrying something heavy but refuses to ask for help." Her breath stilled. She opened her mouth to deny it, to defend herself. But his eyes were gentle. No judgment, no pity, just quiet understanding. Maybe that's why her defenses didn't rise fast enough. "Some things you just have to carry alone," she whispered. He leaned back in his chair. "Maybe, but some things get lighter when you say them out loud." She looked down at her coffee, fingers tightening around the cup. "I don't really talk about personal things." I noticed there was no frustration in his voice, no annoyance, just observation. "Is that a problem?" she asked, careful, guarded. "No," he said immediately. "You don't owe me anything. I just want you to know I'm not here to take pieces of you you're not ready to give." Her chest tightened. He didn't know how powerful that sentence was. He didn't know how deeply it struck. Daniel took everything she gave and left with all of it. Adrian was asking for nothing, and that somehow terrified her more. The unexpected question. A group of noisy teenagers entered the cafe, breaking their moment. They ordered loudly, bumped into a few chairs, and filled the place with laughter. Elena felt herself shrink into her seat. Adrian noticed. "Want to go outside?" he asked softly. Maybe." They grabbed their drinks and stepped out onto the small patio. The air was crisp, cool, still smelling faintly of rain. A few tiny fairy lights hung around the railing, flickering gently. They sat at one of the outdoor tables. Adrian turned to her. His expression softer now that they were away from the noise. "Elena, can I ask you something?" Her stomach tightened. "Depends. Are you lonely?" Her breath caught. Not the question she expected. Not a question anyone had dared to ask. She looked away, staring down at her hands. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe." Adrian leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "Lonely doesn't mean you're weak," he said quietly. "It means you have a heart that used to be full." Her eyes stung. She blinked hard, refusing to cry. "How do you always know what to say?" "I don't," he said with a small laugh. "I just say what I would have wanted someone to tell me when I was going through hell." She looked up, stunned. "You've been through heartbreak too?" He nodded slowly. 2 years ago." She waited. He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. Pain recognized pain. "Was it as bad as mine?" she asked in a small voice. "I don't know your story," he answered. "But heartbreak, it's always bad. It always feels like the end of the world." Without warning, her heart opened, just slightly, just enough for a whisper of truth to escape. "It was 10 years," she said. Adrian didn't react with shock or pity. He just nodded. "That's a long time to love someone." "And a long time to lose," she whispered. A moment of silence passed between them, heavy, fragile, intimate. Then Adrian said something she would remember for months. "You'll love again, Elena." She stiffened immediately. No, I won't. I can't." He held her gaze. "You will," he said softly. "Not today, not tomorrow, but one day you'll wake up and your heart will feel ready." She shook her head, voice cracking. "I don't want to be hurt again." He leaned back, his voice gentle. "You might be, but you also might find something better than anything you've ever known." Tears gathered in her eyes. She hated how much his words touched her. She hated that he believed in something she didn't dare hope for. She hated that a part of her, deep, quiet, buried, wanted to believe him. The day she shared. Too much. The next time they met, it was raining. Not a drizzle, but a heavy, curtain-like downpour. Elena sprinted into the cafe, soaked and shivering. Adrian looked up the second she entered, eyes widening slightly. "Sit," he said, standing and grabbing his jacket. "You're freezing." "I'm fine," she insisted through chattering teeth. "You're not," he said firmly, placing his jacket around her shoulders. Warmth enveloped her, his warmth. Soft and gentle. Her body relaxed instantly, and she hated how safe it felt. He sat down across from her, his gaze thoughtful. "You run here?" "No, I just didn't have an umbrella." "You know," he said, "you're allowed to take care of yourself." She laughed weakly. "I forgot how." He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. Instead, he looked at her with a seriousness she wasn't prepared for. "Elena, what happened to you?" Her heart thudded painfully. She shouldn't answer. She shouldn't open that door. But the warmth of his jacket, the sound of rain around them, the way his eyes held her without pushing. Something broke inside her. "I loved someone for 10 years, she whispered shakily. "And he left me like I was nothing. No fight, no warning. He just stopped loving me." Her voice trembled uncontrollably. Adrian's expression softened with something she couldn't read. Anger, pity, empathy. No, something deeper. "Elena," he said quietly. "I don't trust people anymore," she confessed, voice cracking. "I don't trust myself. I don't trust love. I don't want to feel anything ever again." Silence fell between them, heavy, raw, painfully honest. Adrian's voice, when it came, was soft, almost a whisper. "I'm sorry," he said. "No one deserves that." Her vision blurred. She didn't cry often anymore. Numbness had replaced tears. But now, with him, the numbness cracked. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Adrian didn't reach out to wipe it. He didn't touch her at all. But the way he looked at her, steady, warm, understanding, felt more comforting than any physical touch. "You're not broken," he whispered. "You're hurt." "There's a difference." Her breath hitched, her hands trembled around the cup, and for the first time in months, she let herself feel something. Not love, not yet, but trust, a fragile, budding trust, and it scared her in ways she couldn't explain. The day he showed his own scars, the following week became a pattern. She arrived. He was there. They worked in silence or spoke in soft, gentle conversations. But something changed. They weren't just two people sharing space anymore. They were two broken hearts healing side by side. One afternoon, the cafe was unusually quiet. The rain had driven people indoors, and only a few tables were occupied. Adrian closed his laptop and sat back, staring out the window. "You shared something with me," he said softly. "So I think I should share something too." Elena looked up, surprised. "You don't have to." "I know, but I want to." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I was engaged," he said. Her heart stilled. 2 years ago," he continued, "we were supposed to get married in June." Elena's breath hitched. "She left me," he said quietly. She didn't breathe. "She said I wasn't enough. Said she wanted someone more successful, more ambitious, more exciting." His jaw tightened slightly. It was the first time in my life I realized love isn't always returned, Elena whispered. I'm so sorry. He shrugged gently. I'm not. Not anymore. But it took a long time to feel that way. She hesitated. Do you still love her? He shook his head immediately. No. I think I loved the idea of her more than the real person. She was never someone who stayed. She was someone I tried to hold on to. He looked up at her, eyes soft. Not everyone leaves, Elena. Some people stay, even when things get hard. Her heart squeezed painfully. She didn't know if he meant himself. She didn't ask. But the message was clear. Not everyone is Daniel. Some people choose you. Some people stay. And sometimes, healing comes from someone who understands your pain, not someone who caused it. The moment, something shifted. It happened unexpectedly. A small moment, barely noticeable, but powerful enough to change everything. They were sitting together, sharing a slice of cheesecake, after Elena mentioned she hadn't eaten breakfast. Adrian slid the plate toward her. Eat, she laughed. You sound like my mom. I'll take that as a compliment. She rolled her eyes but took a small bite. A smear of cream landed at the corner of her lip. Hold still, Adrian said quietly. Before she could react, he reached forward with a napkin and gently wiped it away. His fingers didn't touch her skin. He made sure of it. But the closeness, the warmth of his presence, the tenderness of the gesture, it made her heart flutter violently. Her breath caught. Her cheeks warmed. Her chest tightened in a way that felt far too familiar. She forced herself to look away. Her pulse was racing, her mind spinning. She wasn't ready. She shouldn't feel this. Adrian noticed her reaction immediately. I'm sorry, he said, pulling back. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. You didn't, she whispered too quickly. He watched her silently, his gaze gentle yet searching. Elena. Her name in his voice sounded like a soft confession. She swallowed hard. Something was changing, something she couldn't stop. Something she didn't trust but couldn't fight. Emotion tightened her throat. I can't, she whispered, shaking her head. I can't feel anything like that. His expression softened. I know, he said, and I'm not asking you to. Her eyes met his, and something inside her trembled. But, he continued quietly, you're not as numb as you think. Her heart nearly stopped. She didn't answer, she couldn't, because he was right. Something inside her was waking up, something warm, something fragile, something terrifying. The first time he made her laugh. She avoided him the next day. Not intentionally, not consciously. She simply felt overwhelmed by feelings she didn't want, by hope she feared, by the growing connection she couldn't explain. But fate had other plans. The following afternoon, she walked into the cafe, and Adrian wasn't there. For the first time, her chest tightened in an unexpected burst of disappointment. She sat alone, staring at her coffee. Why did she care? Why was she waiting for him? Why did it feel strange being here without him? Just as she gathered her things to leave, someone slid into the seat across from her. Trying to run away from me? Her head whipped up. Adrian. He looked slightly breathless, like he had rushed there. I thought you weren't coming today, she said quietly. I wasn't, he admitted. But then I realized something. She raised an eyebrow. And what's that? I missed your face. Her breath stopped. Heat flushed her cheeks. She opened her mouth to respond, but Adrian grinned suddenly, a playful, mischievous grin. I mean your resting, disapproving face, he teased. It motivates me to work harder. She gaped at him. Then, against her will, a laugh escaped her. A real laugh, soft, surprised, genuine. Adrian froze, then smiled, slow, warm, almost relieved. There it is, he whispered. I've been waiting to hear that. Her heart fluttered violently. She looked away, flustered. "You're ridiculous," she muttered. "And you're adorable when you laugh," he replied. She nearly choked on air. Adrian laughed, leaning back in his seat. "I'm kidding," he said softly. "Mostly." Her pulse wouldn't slow down. She fought a smile. She lost. And Adrian's eyes. God, the way he was looking at her. Soft, warm, silent, captivated. It felt like he was memorizing her. And for the first time in months, she didn't want to run from it. The fear of wanting more. Over the next week, something shifted between them, subtle but undeniable. They still met in the cafe. They still talked about small things. They still shared quiet moments that felt strangely intimate. But now there was something underneath it all. A warmth, a pull, a gentle electricity that wrapped itself around every glance, every smile, every hesitation. Elena felt it. Adrian felt it. But neither said a word, because she wasn't ready. And he knew that. Still, some nights Elena lay awake replaying the way he looked at her, soft, attentive, almost protective. She remembered the warmth of his jacket around her shoulders, the way he gently wiped the cream from her lip, the way he made her laugh again like something inside her had finally thawed. She hated how much she missed him after leaving the cafe, how she checked the time the next day, already anticipating meeting him, how her chest fluttered when she saw him smile. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to feel anything again, especially not for someone as patient and gentle as him. That kind of person was dangerous, someone who made you hope. The almost confession. One afternoon they were seated at their usual table. The sky outside was gray again, threatening another storm. Adrian watched her thoughtfully. "You look lost in your thoughts," he said. "I'm always in my thoughts." "Maybe that's the problem," she frowned lightly. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "You think too much. You feel too little. You live inside your head, but not in the world." She bristled. "That's not fair." "It's not a criticism," he said gently. "It's a defense mechanism." She opened her mouth to argue. But he was right. "I guess I'm just scared," she whispered. "Of me?" he asked softly. Her heart jumped. "No," she said quickly. "Not you. Just everything." He nodded slowly, then quietly. "Can I ask you something honest?" She tensed. "What is it?" He leaned forward slightly, his eyes searching hers with a tenderness that made her breath catch. "When you look at me, what do you see?" Her heart pounded so loudly she could feel it in her ribs. I don't know," she stammered. Adrian's gaze softened. "That's not true." She swallowed hard. She knew exactly what she saw. A man who was safe. A man who listened. A man who understood pain without using it against her. A man who treated her heart like something fragile, not flawed. She saw someone she could fall for, and that terrified her. "I can't answer that," she whispered. "You don't have to," he said softly. "Not until you're ready." But the look in his eyes told her he already knew. The storm that changed everything. That evening, as they were talking, thunder cracked outside, shaking the windows. Rain poured down suddenly, fast and violent. Adrian looked out the window. "You walked today?" "Yeah," she said. "Why?" He raised an eyebrow. "Elena, that storm looks dangerous. You're not walking home in that." "It's fine," she said, grabbing her bag. "No," he said firmly. His tone startled her, not harsh, not controlling, but protective. "I'll walk you home." Her heart tripped over itself. "Adrian, you don't have to." "I know," he said, "but I want to." She hesitated. Every instinct in her screamed to put distance between them, to avoid relying on him, to avoid letting him in. But the storm raged outside, and something in his voice quieted her panic. "Okay," she whispered. He grabbed his jacket and held it over her head as they stepped outside. Rain drenched them almost instantly, warm but relentless. They hurried down the street, sharing the jacket in a clumsy attempt to stay dry, their shoulders pressed together. His arm brushed hers occasionally. Each touch sent sparks through her, unwanted but undeniable. By the time they reached her apartment building, they were both soaked and breathless. Adrian pushed wet hair off his forehead, laughing softly. "You look like you swam home," Elena teased. "You're one to talk." For a moment they stood under the building's awning, catching their breath. Then silence fell. A soft, heavy silence. His eyes met hers. Her heart raced. The rain fell around them like a curtain, shielding them from the world. He stepped just a little closer, barely an inch, but she felt it everywhere. "Elena," he murmured, voice low. She froze. Her chest tightened, her lips parted, her pulse hammered. Was he going to kiss her? Did she want him to? The panic rose instantly. "I should go inside," she whispered quickly, stepping back. Adrian blinked, expression softening into understanding. "Of course," he said quietly. "Get dry, get warm. I'll see you tomorrow." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." She turned and walked inside, her heart aching with confusion. She wanted distance. She wanted safety. She wanted not to feel anything. But as the door closed behind her, she leaned back against it, breath trembling. Because for the first time since Daniel left, she wanted to be kissed. The day she couldn't avoid the truth. Elena barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Adrian standing in the rain, looking at her like she was something worth waiting for. The next day, her heart was a battlefield. Don't fall for him. Don't repeat your past. Don't break again. But when she entered the cafe and saw him already there, hair slightly messy, eyes warm as ever, her heart betrayed her. He smiled. "Hi." "Hi." She sat down, fingers fidgeting with the strap of her bag. "You okay?" he asked gently. "Yeah," she lied. "You're not." She sighed. "You're annoyingly observant." He chuckled. "It's a gift." But he didn't push. He never pushed. Instead, he slid a warm muffin across the table. "You didn't eat breakfast again, did you?" "Elena," she muttered. "You don't know that. You have the I-skipped breakfast face." She gaped at him. "That's not a real thing. It is when it's you." She rolled her eyes, but ate a piece anyway. He watched her quietly for a moment, then said softly, "Last night scared you." Her hand stilled. She lowered her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "I know." Silence settled between them, gentle, understanding. "Adrian," she whispered, voice shaky. "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to feel. I don't know if I'm ready." "I know," he repeated. "You keep saying that. Because it's true." Then he leaned forward slightly, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. "Elena, I'm not asking for anything from you. Not love, not commitment, not even a chance. But if your heart ever wants something, even a little, I want you to know I'm not going anywhere." Her breath trembled. Something in her chest, something fragile and frightened, reached for his words like a lifeline. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why would you stay for me?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because you're worth staying for." Her heart cracked open, just a little, just enough. The moment she finally saw him. After that conversation, they sat quietly. Elena watched him work on his laptop, the soft tapping of the keys strangely comforting. His fingers moved quickly, focused. His brow furrowed slightly when he concentrated, and he would occasionally run a hand through his hair, messing it up even more. There was a softness to him she hadn't noticed before, a quiet strength, a gentleness she didn't know how to handle. He wasn't like Daniel, who was charismatic, charming, and always the center of attention. Adrian was slower, more thoughtful, more present, the kind of man who stayed instead of running, who listened instead of talking over her, who waited instead of demanding, the kind of man who could love deeply. And suddenly, she realized she was looking at him differently, not as a friend, not as a distraction, but as someone who mattered. It terrified her, it warmed her, it confused her. "Why are you staring at me?" Adrian asked without looking up from his screen. She nearly jumped. I wasn't," she stammered. "You were." She froze. He looked up, eyes warm and teasing. "It's okay," he said gently. "You can look at me." Her heart skipped. I just... "You don't have to explain," he said softly. His voice wasn't teasing anymore. It was warm, deep, almost tender. And in that moment, something impossible happened. She didn't look away. One step closer. Later that afternoon, as they packed up to leave, Adrian hesitated. "Elena," he said quietly, "can I walk you home again?" Her heart fluttered. She should say no. She should keep her distance. She should protect her fragile, healing heart. But the truth slipped out before she could stop it. Yes. They walked side by side down the familiar path toward her apartment. The sidewalks glistened with the remnants of last night's rain. The air was cool and clean. Adrian walked close enough that their arms brushed occasionally. Each touch made her breath catch. They didn't talk much, but silence felt different now. Not awkward, not heavy, not dangerous, comfortable, warm, safe. When they reached her building, she stopped. "So," she said softly, "this is me." "I know," he said with a small smile. She hesitated. Her heart pounded. "Adrian," she whispered, I don't know what's happening between us." He nodded. "You don't have to know." "But I feel something," she said before she could stop herself. The words hung in the air, delicate, trembling, real. Adrian inhaled softly. "Elena." He stepped closer, only an inch, but she felt it like a warmth spreading through her chest. "You don't have to rush," he said gently. "However you feel, however fast or slow, I'm here." Her breath trembled. He didn't touch her. He didn't try to kiss her. He didn't push for more. He simply stood there, steady, warm, patient, letting her choose. And for the first time in over a year, Elena didn't feel afraid. She felt alive, the beginning of something beautiful. That night, Elena lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about the way Adrian looked at her, like she wasn't broken, like she wasn't too fragile, like she was someone worth being patient for. She remembered his voice telling her, "You're worth staying for." Something inside her shifted. A tiny spark she thought was dead flickered back to life. Hope, warmth, possibility. She whispered into the quiet darkness, "I'm not ready to love again, but maybe I'm ready to feel something." And without fully realizing it, she smiled. A soft, gentle smile. The kind you only make when your heart is waking up again. The day everything felt different. The next morning, Elena woke up with a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. Lightness, not complete, not overwhelming, but a soft, gentle lightness, like her heart wasn't carrying all its weight for once. She made coffee, stood by the window, and let the morning sun warm her face. It surprised her how many times she almost smiled. She didn't understand it, didn't fully trust it, but she didn't push it away either. Later, as she walked toward the cafe, she caught herself wondering, would Adrian be there? Would he smile when he saw her? Would he sit close enough for their arms to brush? Her heart fluttered. She hated that she cared so much, but she didn't stop walking. The glance that said too much. Adrian was already at their usual table, laptop open. coffee untouched, hair a little messy, eyes scanning the door as if he had been waiting for her. When she walked in, he lit up. It wasn't a big reaction, not a grin, not an exclamation, just a small, warm, involuntary smile that reached his eyes, like seeing her genuinely made his day better. Her breath caught. As she approached, he stood, pulling out the chair beside him, not across from him this time. Her heart skipped. "You okay sitting here?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." She sat beside him, their arms only inches apart. A gentle, warm electricity hummed between them. He pretended not to notice. She pretended not to notice, but both of them felt it. A question too honest. They spent an hour in comfortable silence, working quietly. At some point, Adrian leaned closer, pointing at her screen. "You spelled beautiful wrong." She flushed. "No, I didn't." "You added an extra L," she groaned. "Oh my God, kill me." Adrian laughed, shaking his head. "You're adorable when you're frustrated." Her cheeks heated instantly. "Don't say things like that," she whispered. "Why not?" he asked gently. "Because it makes me want things I'm not supposed to want. Because it makes me feel like my heart is waking up. Because it scares me how much I like hearing it." She said none of that. Instead, because it feels too personal. Adrian tilted his head slightly. "Elena," he said softly, "we're not strangers anymore." Her chest tightened. He watched her, eyes warm but searching. "Can I ask you something?" he murmured. She swallowed. "Yes." "When you look at me now, does it still scare you?" Something inside her trembled. Because the real answer was yes, but not for the reason he thought. Not because he reminded her of her past. Not because he made her fear heartbreak, but because he made her feel something so gentle, so safe, so new, that she didn't know how to hold it. She lowered her eyes. "A little," she whispered. "Why?" he asked softly. "Because you're—" She paused, breath shaking. "The first person who's made me feel anything in a long time." Adrian's entire expression softened, more tender, more emotional, more careful than she had ever seen. "Elena," he whispered, like her name itself hurt him in the best way. "You have no idea how much that means." The walk that changed everything. Later that afternoon, they decided to walk together again. Not home this time, but just around the neighborhood. The sky was cloudy, the air crisp, the city buzzing softly around them. They walked side by side, their arms brushing occasionally. Every touch sent warmth flooding through her veins. They stopped at a small bookstore window, looking at the display. "That one's good," Adrian said, pointing to a romance novel. She gave him a suspicious look. "You read romance?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "That's surprising." He shrugged. "You learn a lot about people from love stories." She traced the glass with her finger, thoughtful. "What did you learn?" "That people don't always fall in love at the right time," he said. "But when the timing is right, it can change everything." Her breath caught. The way he said it, soft, quiet, almost hopeful, felt like a message meant only for her. She turned to him slowly. "Adrian." He met her gaze. The world around them seemed to fade. His eyes lowered to her lips for the briefest second, barely noticeable. But she saw it. Her heart stumbled. "Come on," he said gently, breaking the moment before it consumed them. "I want to show you something." She followed him down the street, around a corner. Then to a small rooftop garden above a nearly hidden staircase. Flowers, green vines, fairy lights strung along wooden beams, a quiet view of the city skyline. Elena gasped softly. "This is beautiful." "I come here when I need to think," he said softly. "Or breathe." She smiled gently. "Thank you for bringing me." He turned to her. "That's because you make me breathe easier." Her heart nearly stopped. She didn't respond. She couldn't. Her emotions were too tangled, fear and hope and warmth and longing mixing into something overwhelming. They stood together, quietly watching the city. Her shoulder brushed his. She didn't move away. Neither did he. A touch that meant everything. The sun dipped lower, casting warm gold across the rooftop. Elena wrapped her arms around herself, shivering slightly. Without a word, Adrian slipped his jacket off and placed it gently around her shoulders. She inhaled sharply as the warmth enveloped her, the warmth of him. "You'll be cold," she murmured. "I'll live," he said softly. Their eyes met. Something shifted, something subtle, something deep, something inevitable. His hand hovered near hers, not touching, just close, too close. She looked down at their hands, her breath trembled, very slowly, very cautiously, as if giving her every chance to pull away. Adrian let his fingers brush hers, a soft, feather-light touch. Barely a second, barely anything, but it felt like everything. Her entire body reacted, a rush of heat, a flutter in her stomach, a tightness in her chest. She didn't pull away. His fingers brushed hers again. Longer this time, warmer, more intentional. Her heart pounded violently. "Elena," he whispered, voice quiet and trembling. "If this is too much—" She shook her head quickly. "No," she breathed, "it's not." And for the first time, she reached back. Her fingers slipped between his, their hands finally intertwined. Her pulse skyrocketed, his breath hitched. The world around them seemed to vanish. It was just a touch, just their hands, but it felt like the beginning of something she had convinced herself she would never feel again, something soft, something warm, something dangerous, something beautiful. The almost kiss. They stood there, hand in hand, neither speaking, neither moving. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, with an expression so full of tenderness that her heart ached. "Elena," he whispered. She could hear the emotion trembling in his voice. Wanting, care, fear, hope. He took a small step closer. Her breath caught. He lifted his free hand slowly, giving her every chance to stop him. His fingers brushed a strand of hair from her face. Her pulse crashed into her ribs. "Elena," he breathed again, softer now. He wasn't asking. He wasn't pushing. He was waiting. Their faces were inches apart. Her lips parted. His breath mingled with hers. Her heart thundered violently. She felt him leaning in, slow, hesitant, gentle. And for a single fragile second, she wanted it. She wanted him. She wanted everything he was silently offering. But then, a memory crashed through her mind, Daniel saying, "I'm not in love with you anymore." Her chest tightened painfully. Her breath faltered. Adrian felt the shift instantly. He stopped, not because he didn't want her, but because he felt her fear. He pulled back just enough to give her space. "Elena," he whispered, "it's okay. You don't have to be ready." Tears gathered in her eyes. I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I thought I wanted to, but I—" "Hey," he said softly, cupping the air beside her cheek, but not touching her. "You don't have to explain. I promised I wouldn't push you." She looked down, ashamed of her own fear, but Adrian tilted her chin up gently, without touching her, just enough for her to meet his eyes. "I meant it when I said I'm not going anywhere." Her heart cracked wide open, not with pain, not with fear, but with something terrifyingly close to love. The walk home. They walked home slowly, silently, their hands barely brushing, but not fully touching this time. Adrian respected her space, her boundaries, her pace. When they reached her building, he turned to her gently. "Elena, may I ask you something?" She nodded, heart pounding. "Do you regret what almost happened?" She swallowed. No, she whispered. I don't. Relief washed over his face. He exhaled shakily. Good, he murmured. A small silence hung between them, fragile, warm, hopeful. Good night, Elena, he said softly. Good night, Adrian. She watched him leave, and her heart ached in the most beautiful way. Not because she was afraid, but because she finally understood something. Adrian wasn't Daniel. Adrian wasn't a risk. Adrian wasn't a mistake waiting to happen. Adrian was the place her heart was slowly learning to rest, and she was falling for him. Slowly, gently, painfully, beautifully. And she didn't want to stop. The return of the past. 2 days passed without Adrian. Not because he didn't come to the cafe, but because Elena didn't. She panicked. The almost kiss on the rooftop replayed in her mind over and over. And every time her fear changed the ending. What if she hurt him? What if she wasn't enough? What if she fell and he eventually realized she wasn't worth staying for? The memories of Daniel's leaving still echoed too loudly, but on the 3rd day she forced herself back to the cafe. Adrian wasn't there. For the first time since meeting him, the absence hurt. She sat alone, staring at the door, hoping, wishing, until it finally opened, and he walked in. The moment he saw her, he stopped. Relief washed across his face so visibly she felt it across the room. He walked straight to her table. You came, he breathed. I'm sorry, she whispered. I needed time. He sat down slowly, eyes soft, hopeful, cautious. I understand. But before she could speak again, a voice shattered the moment. Elena! Her heart dropped. Daniel. He stood near the counter, shock written all over his face. Elena, it is you. Adrian's posture stiffened. Elena froze. Daniel walked toward her slowly, guilt and hesitation in his expression. I've been meaning to call, he said softly. I've been thinking about us. Adrian looked between them quietly, jaw tightening slightly. Elena's heart raced, old pain clawing at her chest. I don't want to talk about this, she whispered. Daniel stepped closer. Elena, please. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have left. I just want to talk. Adrian stood up. Maybe she doesn't want to talk to you, he said calmly. Daniel looked at him sharply. And who are you? Before Adrian could answer, Elena rose to her feet. Her voice was soft but strong. He's someone who stayed. Daniel's face fell. Elena, I still love you. Her eyes burned, but not with longing, with clarity. No, she said quietly. You don't. She took a breath, steady, deep, freeing. You loved the version of me who made you feel comfortable, but when life got hard, you left, and love doesn't leave. Daniel swallowed. Elena. She stepped back. I'm not yours anymore. I'm not the girl you broke. I'm healing now, and I'm not going backwards. Daniel opened his mouth, but there was nothing left to say. He left the cafe silently. Elena exhaled shakily. Her whole body felt lighter. Adrian stepped closer. You okay? He asked softly. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but not from sadness, from release. Yes, she whispered. For the first time. Yes. The moment her heart chose, they walked out of the cafe together. The evening sun painting the sky gold, Elena felt like something inside her had shifted permanently, like the last piece of a chain had fallen away. Adrian walked beside her, quiet and patient as always. When they reached her building, she stopped. Adrian? He turned, eyes full of gentle concern. Yes? She took a breath, a deep, brave, trembling breath. I was scared, she whispered. But not of you. I was scared of loving again. His eyes softened. You don't have to love me. But I want to, she said quietly. Adrian froze. Her voice shook, but her heart didn't. I think I've been falling for you from the moment you noticed I wasn't okay. From the moment you didn't push. From the moment you stayed. She looked up, eyes shimmering. You didn't break me. You helped me find myself again. Adrian exhaled shakily, emotion flooding his eyes. Elena. She stepped closer, closer than ever. Her voice was almost a whisper. I'm still scared, but I want to try. With you. Only you. Adrian lifted a trembling hand, stopping just before touching her cheek. Are you sure? He whispered. She nodded. I'm sure. Very gently he cupped her face, warm, soft, careful, as if she were something precious. Her breath caught, and then he leaned in slowly, patiently, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips touched for the first time. Soft, warm, full of emotion. A kiss that wasn't desperate, wasn't rushed, wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about choosing the future. When they finally pulled away, she rested her forehead against his. Thank you, she whispered. For what? He breathed. For staying. He smiled, soft, full of love. I'm not going anywhere. Healing together weeks passed. Their love grew slowly, beautifully. He held her hand gently. She leaned against him without fear. He kissed her softly, like a promise. She smiled more than she ever thought she could again. He didn't replace her past. He helped her understand she didn't need to be afraid of the future. And Elena learned something powerful. Love after heartbreak wasn't impossible. It was just different, softer, warmer, stronger. Because this time she chose someone who stayed, someone who listened, someone who healed alongside her, someone who loved her gently, completely, patiently, someone who loved her right. The heart that finally came home. On a quiet evening, months after the rooftop almost kiss, they returned to that garden. Fairy lights glowed softly above them. Elena wrapped her fingers around Adrian's. Do you remember the first time we came here? She asked. He smiled. I remember you holding my hand like it was the scariest thing you'd ever done. And now? She whispered playfully. He pulled her closer. And now I can't imagine not holding it. She laughed softly, her chest warm with love. Elena, he said, voice low and full of emotion. You saved me, without even trying. She shook her head. No, we saved each other. He kissed her gently, slowly, lovingly, the kind of kiss that felt like a home she never knew she was missing. When they pulled apart, she whispered, I'm not afraid anymore. Adrian smiled. I knew you'd find your heart again. And I found you, she said. He brushed a thumb across her cheek. And I found the love I'd been waiting for. They stood together, surrounded by lights and flowers, the city humming softly below. Two souls who had been broken, two hearts who learned to heal, two people who chose each other, slowly, carefully, beautifully. And in that quiet rooftop garden, Elena finally understood. Love after heartbreak isn't the same love you had before. It's deeper, it's wiser, it's stronger. It's the kind of love that stays. And she had found it. With Adrian, her second chance, her gentle beginning, her forever. She shook her head. No, we saved each other. He kissed her gently, slowly, lovingly, the kind of kiss that felt like a home she never knew she was missing. When they pulled apart, she whispered, I'm not afraid anymore. Adrian smiled. I knew you'd find your heart again. And I found you, she said. He brushed a thumb across her cheek. And I found the love I'd been waiting for. They stood together, surrounded by lights and flowers, the city humming softly below. Two souls who had been broken, two hearts who learned to heal, two people who chose each other, slowly, carefully, beautifully. And in that quiet rooftop garden, Elena finally understood. Love after heartbreak isn't the same love you had before. It's deeper, it's wiser, it's stronger. It's the kind of love that stays. And she had found it. With Adrian, her second chance, her gentle beginning, her forever. Love after heartbreak isn't the same love you had before. It's deeper, it's wiser, it's stronger. It's the kind of love that stays. And she had found it. With Adrian, her second chance, her gentle beginning, her forever.